Hey guys, thanks so much for being with us. We have Jason Schechterle in the studio today. If you are from Arizona, you probably recognize that name. He's a retired Phoenix police officer, and he is the author of this book, Burning Shield. So we did things a little bit different with his interview. You will hear audio only during the podcast. What you will see are stills taken during the interview. Jason was recently honored at the Maricopa Health Foundation's Hero Awards. At about the 2-minute mark, you're going to see a clip from that award show, a really dramatic clip taken during the night when his squad car was rear-ended. He was not expected to survive that crash, and yet he has gone on to defy the odds. His story is incredible, and I know that you will be inspired. Enjoy.
Stories that are untold, underreported, and all-out inspirational. Carey Pena reports.
Hey everyone, I'm Carey Pena. Thank you so much for listening to Carey Pena Reports on iTunes and Stitcher, and for watching our shows on Facebook and YouTube. Of course, you can see all of our shows and content at inspiredmedia360.com. The focus of this podcast is to share inspiration and stories of strength and survival. And the man who is with us today has one of the most inspirational stories that you will ever hear. Retired Phoenix police officer Jason Schechterle is in the studio. Jason, how you doing?
I'm good, Carey. How
It
are
is
you?
so good to see you.
It's great to see you again.
So I have to ask you first, before we dive into your story, I have to ask you about your son. He just graduated from 8th grade.
Last night, he graduated from 8th grade, and he is off to high school, and he's the baby.
Yes.
And it's just unbelievable that they're growing up that quick.
What was it like to see him graduate? Because, I mean, you've defied every odd to live to see this day.
Yeah, it's an odd thing with him because we both have such a deeper appreciation for his life, because in so many ways he shouldn't even be here. And so to see him, I still remember graduating from 8th grade. I'm not that old. I can remember what that feeling was like. And I'm excited to see him go on his next journey. He's going to a great high school. He's very athletic. He's a good student, and he loves life. He's got a bright future. So I was a very proud dad last night.
Yes. You have 3 kids.
3 kids, yes.
So recently you were honored at the Maricopa Health Foundation Night of Heroes event. They opened the event with a very dramatic video taking us inside the moment when your squad car was rear-ended. This was March 26, 2001, the day that your life changed forever. Let's listen.
He should be dead. He should have died right there at the scene.
Engine 4, come take care of the burn victim in the P car. Police officer burn and wind caught a seatbelt.
Phoenix police officer Jason Schechterle's Ford Crown Victoria patrol car was rear-ended by a taxi and burst into flames.
Give me a first alarm medical. Police car involved. Your car copy, 30-year-old male, priority 1, Woods, Maricopa County.
People do not survive when their entire head and upper body is engulfed in flame and smoke. It's just physiologically impossible.
His patrol car exploded into a ball of fire, and somehow he survived.
You know, I got that phone call, got in my car and raced down to the hospital, and when I saw him, I really couldn't even believe what I was looking at. He just had this charred black head. So I took my knuckle right here and I hit his forehead, and it felt like I was hitting this concrete floor. I mean, he's burned through all the layers of the skin, through the fat, through the muscle, down to the bone. And by the grace of God, not only is he alive, he's probably going to live through it, and then what is he going to be left with? A guy or a gal who gives back, not asking for anything, just wants to continuously improve everyone's situation. That, to me, is the definition of a hero.
Is it difficult for you to watch this video?
It's not difficult. It's actually, I am enthralled and humbled and I'm so appreciative of what the people on that scene did that night. They are the heroes. These are people, I understand from being in law enforcement, I believe that it is a true calling, and it certainly was for me. I was I was called to it because of the death of Phoenix Police Officer Mark Atkinson 2 years to the day before my accident. And so to listen to what those firefighters did and a couple of police officers, and then the opportunities that they gave me to get to the burn center at Maricopa County Medical Center, it's more, sometimes I know I'm watching myself, but sometimes it's just like, wow, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So.
The images, I covered your story, but I had never seen some of those images. And to see you in those moments, and then to see you sitting here today, it is a miracle.
It's a complete miracle. 16 years later, and in some ways it feels like it was last week. Some ways it was a lifetime ago. But it's, as Dr. Caruso said at the opening of the video, he should be dead. And it's fun to be able to look back and say, wow, you came from something that absolutely nobody else has survived. Those type of burns and all the little things you look at. I had a fire truck sitting in my intersection. I mean, talk about a miracle, and the twist of fate went into putting that, and then the team that was in place, the nurses and the doctors, and what they were able to do so quickly is just unbelievable.
I was struck by Dr. Daniel Caruso, incredible physician and so kind-hearted and caring about his patients. But he talks in the video about racing to the hospital and how he was in shock when he saw you, and then asking himself the question, if he lives, what is he going to be left with? Do you have any memories of those moments?
I don't have any memories of those moments, but I loved learning after the fact the human side of the story. Dr. Caruso, he's a burn doctor, and for a lot of us take for granted, well, that's your job, and you do what you do every day, and it doesn't affect you, and that's not how it is. And he once told me that in the surgery he was thinking, am I doing this guy a favor? He could just easily stop what he's doing for a few minutes, and I could have passed away, and it would have been a lot easier on all of us. And I think he wondered for many years, was he doing me a favor? And that's what I love seeing Dr. Caruso now, because he gets to see how healthy and happy I am. He sees my son, that a whole nother life was created because of the efforts of him and Dr. Foster and Dr. Matthews and the nursing staff on that night. So even though I don't have those memories, I love to daydream and put myself in their shoes, and I just love the human side of what they also go through. This was not just about me. It was life and career defining for them.
Because you were really not supposed to be able to survive those injuries. Your face, for those listening to this and not actually seeing the pictures, I mean, basically your face had pretty much like almost melted down to the core.
Well, 4th degree burns, which is something I had never heard prior to this, as Dr. Caruso will describe it, it's down through the last layers of muscle, it's through the fat, it's all the way to the bone. So I think in some ways, the fact that I was actually on fire, I wasn't just surrounded by heat and melting, I was actually on fire. And yes, I lost my entire physical identity right down to the bone. And how in the world are you going to ever rebuild that, reconstruct that, let alone survive? Again, nobody survives 4th degree burns to their head and face.
And going back to the question that Dr. Caruso asked, what is he going to be left with? What you were left with was a very long and painful road, more than 52 surgeries, right? And some decisions along the way to make about choosing life for yourself, for your family. And in your book called Burning Shield, it's a great book, by the way, you say dying would have been easy. This path was not easy.
That's for sure. And I say that never once have I wished I was dead. Never once have I considered dying after the fact. But having no memory of the collision, having no fear associated with that, passing away that night would have been very simple, whereas what I was facing was full of fear and pain for quite a few years. So that's what I meant by that statement.
Your story is incredible, what you've gone through, and I can't wait to share with folks what you're doing today, because it is truly the heart of inspiration and how you have managed to fight both physically and mentally to create a great life for your family and to go out and help others. On page 360 of your book, you write, being a cop is a brotherhood that will always last. Even bigger, now that I understand the full power of the human spirit, there's nothing you can't overcome with a positive attitude. The sun rises, life goes on, and you can either be part of it or not. It's that simple.
It really is that simple. When I hear people, when they get really down, they're going through tough times, and they'll say casually like, oh, life sucks. I always think to myself, compared to what? There is nothing like life. And we're all going to have good days and bad days, but this is a beautiful, short, precious experience. So you can't give up on anything, and everything that you go through, especially the adversity, it just continues to build a stronger, more solid foundation that's going to get you onto the next parts of your life. And yeah, the sun is coming up tomorrow, whether you want it to or not.
Yeah.
I mean, life will leave you behind. You're either on board or you're not. And there's just absolutely nothing worth giving up for. But you have to have the ability to see that there are so many things bigger than yourself. And for all of us, it's different. I have my kids. I have a career that I care about deeply now. I had a career that was a dream. And when you touch one of your dreams, when you hold that in your hand, even for a very brief time, it can never be taken away. So you have to find what moves you, what inspires you, and surround yourself with that mentally and emotionally, and that's what will take care of you.
One of the things that struck me that you wrote about in your book was that you were prescribed a low dose of antidepressants that you took for a short period of time, and then you decided to discontinue that use. You wanted to just feel what you were feeling and be able to deal with it, I assume?
I did. When I first got out of the hospital, I was in the hospital about a little over 5 months. When I first got home, I was having, it wasn't a lot of bad days, consecutive days. It was like I'd have a few bad hours here and there. So we tried a medication, I believe it was Zoloft, and it did help. And I took it for about 3 weeks, and then I thought to myself, you know what, I have no opportunity to fail here. I've got such a support system. I've got the police department, the community here is amazing with its first responders. I've got my wife and children, my parents, all my friends, and so I did. I wanted to feel what I was going to feel. And the same way with the pain. When I'd have a surgery and I'd come home with all this wonderful medicine, and I would give myself a 72-hour window. As soon as that time was up, even if I was still in pain, the medication had to be destroyed and out of the house, because I wasn't going to take a chance on, after what I've gone through, becoming dependent or addicted to something that was going to set me back. So you put it, that's a great way to put it. Feel what you're going to feel and embrace that, good and bad.
Well, in order to get to the other side, you have to be able to feel it. And what you were going through was so incredibly intense. At the time, you guys just had 2 children, and then
Right.
your youngest son, as you mentioned, was conceived after that.
Right.
And then I'd imagine at that point, when your wife, your beautiful wife Susie, gets pregnant, then there's so much more excitement and things to think about the future. Was that a big part of the key in your journey?
It was a huge part of it, because when you're talking about creating a whole nother life, and again, something bigger than yourself, I have a responsibility now to be the best dad I can be, no matter what my physical condition, but mentally and emotionally, I can be there for him and my other 2 kids, because they didn't deserve this. I'm fine. It's easier to go through something than to watch somebody you love go through it. So I knew my kids were having a tough time. So that made me want to be a little bit stronger. And when I see them today, it has paid dividends like I had never dreamed, the way they have turned their adversity completely full circle into helping other people and understanding, again, I keep repeating this, that the way to live your life is being a part of things that are bigger than yourself.
What was the toughest part of the journey in terms of your children? I mean, you were terribly disfigured after the accident. I have to say, you look really great right now.
Thank you.
I mean, they did an incredible job basically rebuilding your face.
Yeah, they did an amazing job.
But your kids are little, and that's a tough thing for them to try to figure out what's going on with Dad.
It is a tough time. My daughter was only 7, but she was pretty mature. My son, Zane, he was only 3, and when I got home, he would cry, run out of the room. He would openly say, "You're not my dad." So
How did you deal with that, Jason?
That was easy. A ton of tears, a ton of how are we going to get through this? And it went. I got home in August, and it went that way all the way till Christmas. We're talking 5 months of him being scared of me, not understanding. But kids are very resilient, and when it's almost like flipping a light switch. As soon as he got it, as soon as whatever he had to process in his little mind, there was no turning back. And today, he's 18. He's just finished his freshman year in college, and he's the most beautiful soul I've ever seen put on this earth. He genuinely loves everybody he comes in contact, and he does nothing but good for other people. He's very unselfish. And so I look back on that now, and what was the toughest parts have turned into the best parts.
Your story is so much about perspective. And I wanted to find out from you, what was the impetus of writing your book? Because I know, having covered your story over the years, and I can only imagine at times you don't want to talk to the media, and you're kind of done telling your story over and over, right? You want to get on with your life. What made you decide to tell your story and share it in such an intimate way?
The book really came out of a desire to leave a legacy behind for my children, have the story told accurately by somebody who could really capture my voice. But now that my full-time career is public speaking, and I'm very blessed to be able to travel around the country and share a story that not a lot of people can tell. And it's a great story. You know, there's a lot of highs, a lot of lows, so much laughter, and I still continue to be inspired by sharing my story with other people. And the book, it's a great revolving wheel. The more books that people that I sell and that people read, the more opportunities I have to speak. The more I speak, the more opportunities I have to get the book in front of people. So it's kind of a great circle.
When you go out and you're traveling the country, that's a part of the story I was so excited to tell, because what I love to do on this podcast, we interview a lot of people who walk through very tough times. I mean, obviously your story is one of the most severe, what you've gone through, but you know, we interview people we had a lady not long ago who has stage 4 cancer, and there's no cure for her, but she's living each day the best she can. Okay. And I like to tell that part of the story, you know, what happens after that diagnosis or after the accident. Right. Outside of our control, these things happen, right? So now you're traveling the country and you're a motivational speaker. You've written this book, you've told your story. How does that make you feel to be able to stand in front of crowds and hopefully, inspire people for their own lives, whatever they might be going through?
That's the exact way you have to say this. I love sharing my story so much, and it's for whatever people are going through. There are 2 things that I really go out of my way to explain in my presentations. Number 1, I titled my book Burning Shield because it's a great cliche. I was clearly burned in a fire, and I used to wear a badge. But I let the audience know those are the 2 least important parts of this story. It doesn't matter what my injuries are, and it doesn't matter my former career. And I also, in this life, I think it's natural for us, we always want to compare our adversity to somebody else's. You look at somebody else and you think, oh, I don't have any problems. Well, you're not that other person. You're you. Whatever you are going through today is a big deal. And if you compare it, if you sit here and look at me and my appearance and imagine what it's like for me to get on an airplane by myself and travel the country and have kids stare at me on elevators and the pain that I must feel. If you get caught up in that and you forget what you or your family's going through today, then you're being very unfair to yourself. How are you going to overcome? How are you going to build that foundation and get ready for the next set of adversity? So I love to connect with people in a way, like you said, there's somebody who's going through stage 4 cancer. There's somebody who lost a loved one. There's somebody who just got fired from their job. There's a baseball player who went 0 for 4 today and struck out. You know what? That's a big deal. And I truly believe that. You cannot compare adversity. So when I get a chance to speak in front of an audience and connect that little piece of the puzzle and maybe have a light bulb go off and then they'll go home. Because at night, when you lay down on the pillow and close your eyes, you're alone with your thoughts, you're going to think about your adversity. You just are. And you're not going to think about other people. Think about yours.
I'd imagine a lot of people reach out to you who you've touched over the years. Is there anything that stands out in your mind, someone who's written you a note or who's come up to you and really impacted you?
Yeah, there's been a lot because people are very, very kind. They come up, and I love when people will come up and share their stories with me. They'll come up and say, hey, I got diagnosed with an illness a couple days ago, and I haven't even found the courage to tell my family. To answer that question directly, though, the one that actually changed my life and made me do public speaking the way I do today was in 2010. I did a speech, and about 700 people there, and unbeknownst to me, there was a New York City firefighter, and he came up to me after the speech, and he said, Jason, I was at 9/11, and nothing else needs to be said. I understand what he went through that day, and even though I wasn't there, I know he lost a lot of his friends and faced a tremendous amount of fear. He said, I was at 9/11, and I'm currently going through a divorce, and your story changed my life. And when you hear somebody say something that powerful, it's incredibly humbling and made me realize that this is what I need to be doing, is telling my story. And it goes back to the old cliche that if you can just touch one person, then it's worth it, right? So that's what I try to do. And I love speaking to all age groups, all genres. Actually, law enforcement is probably the smallest group I speak to. Mm-hmm. I speak to a lot of medical things. I just got back from Florida. I spoke to a large banking convention, and I kind of like to run the gamut because my story is, again, it's not about being
transcends.
Burned. It does. It's not about being burned or being a cop. It's about life and adversity, and here it is. We're all going to deal with it, but not everybody is as lucky as me. Not everybody probably wants to get up on a stage and share their story. I do. I love doing it. And so hopefully I'm going to be able to continue doing that for a long time.
Do people still, like you said, when you fly around and you're by yourself, does it still bother you when people look at you? And, of course, kids don't always know how to react. And does that bother you? Or have you gotten past that?
I got to be honest. I'm human like everybody else, and I have my good days and my bad days. There's days that you can see the compassion in other people's eyes. There's days when you see the curiosity and the ignorance in other people's eyes. There are days when hey, this is me, and I have a very good reason why I look like this. And then there's days where I'm just like, you know what? I wish you would not. But it was only about 18 months ago that I chose to start traveling alone. I mean, to go through these airports, to get on airplanes, I don't have the greatest eyesight, so I've really got to work my way through finding gates, and I'll rent my own cars. That is a challenge that I embrace. I don't want to travel with friends anymore as a crutch or as a support. I need to do things like this on my own, so it's only made me stronger. But of course, good days and bad days.
It kind of struck me in your book when you wrote about, I forget, maybe you were in New York, you said you were out of town, and then a gentleman who came up to you who was homeless, and he recognized you, and he shook your hand? I mean, because people do recognize you, and I think you wrote in here that he shook your hand, took his glove off and shook your hand and said, "God bless you."
Yes, that was amazing. I got recognized one time in Toronto, Canada. I was walking, and the guy said, "Hey, you were that guy on the first 48 hours," and I just started laughing. I thought, I'm in Toronto, Canada, and you're like, I'm famous. You watched the TV show, because I'm just Jason from Phoenix, and it's hilarious. But it's so heartwarming to have people, first of all, the courage it takes to walk up to somebody. And when people do that, it just warms my heart.
I love that. That's so real human connection.
It is.
One of my favorite pictures in your book is you by yourself on that golf course, because you love golf.
Love golf.
And you had to have your hands totally rebuilt, right? And
yes.
And so for you to be able to stand on that golf course, Torrey Pines, I used to live in San Diego, so I love that picture as well. But I thought that picture was so representative of so much of your story. You by yourself, and in so many ways, your wife even said it, she couldn't do it for you. Mm-hmm. No one could do it. You had to do it for yourself. And there you are. And even I understand still beating some of your friends and family in golf.
Yeah.
I guess you're a pretty good golfer.
I actually I was pretty good when I graduated high school, and I used to play a lot all the way up until my accident. And it was the one thing that I kind of gave up on. There's no way I'm going to be able to hold on to, my hands are pretty deformed. I lost half my fingers. And with my eyesight, I'm not going to be able to do this. But after retiring from the police department, I started to play again. And I was able to get back to playing at a very low handicap, and something I enjoy. And I love that picture, because for anybody out there listening, the third hole at Torrey Pines South Course is the single greatest place I've ever been. And I've been a lot of places. And I go over there at least 4 times a year, and I play Torrey Pines. I do Wounded Warrior projects over with Balboa Naval Medical Center and Operation Game On, some other things. So I get to spend some time in San Diego. But you're right, that picture, it's my back and then the ocean and the cliffs in the distance, and it's representative of, I think, a serene feeling that everything's okay. And if you give whatever you're going through enough time, it's going to be okay.
You say in your book, life is 10%, or on your website, I think it says it, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. What do you want to leave people with today? If they could listen to this interview and take away one thing from your story, what do you want them to take away?
The one thing that I want everybody out there to take away, again, everybody is facing something. Everybody is facing a battle that the rest of us know nothing about. Don't let the pain of today blind you from the promise of tomorrow. Your human spirit can shine so bright when it's given no choice but to do so, and your attitude is everything. And it's not easy. Trust me when I tell you I've had some very dark days. I have not had the best attitude all the time. You can't be the best version of yourself, but tomorrow morning when you wake up, you get another opportunity to be a better version of yourself. So whatever you're going through, just don't give up. Give it a chance. Let the sun come out tomorrow. Let the time pass, and I promise you, you're going to come out a much better person than you are today.
And to all those doctors from Maricopa Medical Center and the Burn Center in Phoenix, which is one of the best in the nation,
it's the
what
best.
What do you say to them?
I'm just filled with so much gratitude and thanks at all time for my life, for my family, for my youngest son, Mason. And I love traveling the country, and when people find out where I was, a lot of times I'll have people, medical professionals, say, hey, I was trained at County. And so the spider web goes all throughout this country. And I deeply love my doctors, Dr. Dan Caruso and Kevin Foster. The nurses I still keep in touch with. These people saved my life. And I love that hospital. I love the entire staff, and I will be forever in debt to what they gave me.
For people who want to know more about your story and potentially engage you in a speaking gig, because you're great on stage.
Thank you.
Where can they find you?
burningshield.com. And if you type my name, Jason Schechterle, into Google, it's the first thing that comes up. And I'm the only one who gets those emails and handles my own
You don't have people, and your people don't have people?
No, my people don't have people. And it's,
You're all fancy now, getting
just,
recognized all over.
Little old me and my email. So I would love it for anybody to contact me and give me an opportunity to speak. And if you want to get a copy of Burning Shield, the book, it's something I'm very proud of. Landon Napoleon, he's written, I believe mine was his 14th book, and he really captured my voice. He's a very talented writer. So the book is something that I am very proud of, and it's we self-published on Amazon.
It's a great book.
Thank you.
And I'm just loving sitting here with you today. You got your
Carey.
D-backs hat on.
Yeah.
You're ready to rock
Love
and
the
roll.
D-backs.
Thank you so much, Jason. And thanks for listening, everyone, to Carey Pena Reports. Of course, you can subscribe to us, inspiredmedia360.com, to see all of our interviews and shows. Today's show produced and engineered by Shannon Hernandez, brought to you by Inspired Media 360. Until next time, stay inspired.